Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Carr, your work doctor, and this is Achieve with Dr. C broadcast. I am talking to you today about a subject that is probably just unlike COVID or any of the things that are going on with the pandemic. All of our lives have been touched by the subject, and today we'll be talking about addiction. And I'm actually doing an interview with my brother to discuss this important subject and to define addiction and also to make sure um, uh, he has an ability to talk about it because he's currently fighting for his sobriety. And he wants to have that discussion with everyone as a very real and relevant way to help others. That's the whole goal of the subject. And it's not an easy one to to discuss. It's not an easy one to even put out there as something that's going on in my own family. And I'll tell you the reason why I wanted to discuss this is because there's an epidemic of mental and emotional unwellness in relation to what the effects of the pandemic have had. But there's also an unwillingness to address the issue, especially when it comes to alcoholism and use of recreational drugs. They're the dirty, dark secret. And most families are dealing with someone in the throes of addiction or a recovered addict in their family. And there were two major impetus to wanting to discuss this issue. Besides the fact that my brother, James, say hi, James, is sitting back there. I'm still bossy with him, even though he's a grown man. I still treat him like my baby brother because that's what he is. But anyway, I wanted to discuss the subject, one, because my brother has been living with me. And during this time, I have been trying to provide him a non-toxic environment to gain his sobriety. He did not want to go to rehab. He didn't want to check into a facility. He had a treatment plan from previous rehab, and he wanted the opportunity to do that. And I felt like being here with me is a great environment because I had gone home, one of my visits home, and I did not like what I saw with my brother. And unlike the rest of my family and people and friends around us, I wasn't willing to do nothing, nor was I willing to not call it out. It was a pretty bad state that he was in, and I didn't feel like he would live much longer if he didn't get help. So I did the big sister thing and demanded he get rehab. And of course, he didn't listen, but he did tell me what he was willing to do. So that's where we are today. The second thing is, had a friend from high school experienced a tragedy of a son who had issues with sobriety and drugs and mental illness. And as a result, that high school friend was killed by his son, and then his son committed suicide. And I believe he shot other family members as well. And also, as I was talking with different media professionals and pitching stories, I noticed the reticence of the media and people that I talked to talk about this issue in this country that is epidemic. And it's a struggle we all have comforting ourselves with drugs and alcohol as we deal with the difficulty of this pandemic. And I believe that's the real pandemic, is the suffering of our mental and emotional well-being. So, as I said in my description of what addiction is, for the show. Addiction is a biopsychosocial disorder characterized by repeated use of drugs or alcohol or repeated engagement in a behavior such as gambling, despite harm to self and to others. That's what addiction is. It's an over reliance on a substance or a behavior to your detriment. It does not cause what you want it to cause because of the abuse and overuse of it. And it looks like we are live, James, which I did not want to be. This was supposed to be recorded and up later, but I guess we can just go with it.
All right.
And I'll just re-air it again on Monday at 10 a.m. when it was supposed to air. Hang on platform. Anyway, we'll just keep talking. So James, Bogey,
Oh, no.
baby brother, talk to us a little bit about everything you just heard and what that meant to you to hear what addiction really is.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Basically, it's a mental thing. It's something that you use as a coping mechanism to take away certain issues, certain problems, certain thoughts. Just a way to take your real reality away and make yourself feel better. It doesn't always work out that way, but it's one of the, I would say, tools or something that's easy to gain or access. And once you're in that state, yes, you're not worried about how it affects you, how it affects people around you, because you're oblivious to it, because you're more worried about yourself. And in saying that is kind of oxymoron because you're not realizing the damage that you're doing to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it can have a negative effect in just your whole demeanor of the person that you are. One of my friends gave me a good tool that I always use now. And he told me personally, he's like, I'm glad to see that you developed the mental fortitude to be able to look at and be able to control something that had gotten out of control. Mm-hmm. So that really stuck with me, like mental fortitude. I'm like one of the smartest people I know. I am a know-it-all. I come by honest. But we're having that mental fortitude being developed made me think about addiction in a total different way because, like my sister had mentioned, I went to the counseling, I went to the AA meetings, did it and was faithful to it, but I didn't do it for me. There was other reasons why I was doing it, relationship, trying to get people off my back, almost losing a job because of it. So it was never really just to take care of myself internally. And I had built a toxic environment. You don't know how toxic your environment is until you're actually out of that environment. So it was becoming a norm, waking up, drinking, being around your friends, drinking, it was just something that was a daily part of life. And I was a very highly functional alcoholic. It didn't bother me to go to work lit.
Now, let me say something about the highly functional. I'm going to ask a question immediately after. I believe it is the delusion that being in a drug dependency or an alcohol dependency or behavior, detrimental behavior dependency that you believe you're functioning. It's like I told you the other day, you don't understand the distinguishing difference in your behavior when you're lit versus when you're not. And you don't understand who you really are when you're drunk or when you're high. And you think you're behaving one way and you don't realize you're behaving another way. So my question for you is, when did you first realize you needed help to stop abusing alcohol? What was your first realization that it was a problem?
Well, I've always known it was a problem, but I never cared about it. I never cared to address it. It wasn't anybody else concerned the way I conducted my life. You didn't pay my bills. You didn't do this or that. It came to a point of where it was getting real bad to where waking up having to drink, no longer it being, something sociable or fun, is I need to drink because I can't stop shaking. I don't want to go through this detox that I know is going to hurt like heck, but um, just not wanting to face that. And when I actually did look at it, and I started wanting more for myself. Didn't want to go out. I'm 45 years old, and didn't want to spend the last part of hopefully a long life, being underneath a substance. Um, that was when I was like, okay, all right, now I'm ready. Not that I have to be ready for other situations or people. I'm ready because I wanted something more for just myself personally. So that's when I was like, I don't mind getting the help and, you know, being able to accept it. That's the one big thing is being able to accept the help. Because everybody that says that they're trying to help you always do not have your best interest in heart. So it's being able to be willing to accept that help and make sure it's the right help that you need for yourself.
Okay, let's talk about that too, because some people listening or listening to the rebroadcast, which I hope you will share, like, and if you're listening to the rebroadcast, which this was supposed to be aired Monday, but for some reason it went live when it's scheduled. So anyway, what was it that you had to do once you realized you needed to get help, that you needed to stop abusing alcohol, and um, tell us about the process you had to go through to get help. The first time when you did it for someone else, and the second time when you did it for yourself.
Well, the first time was, just to shut people up, try to fix a broken relationship because I wanted to, put a lot of blame on myself or take accountability for, at least my part of the failure of the relationship, failure of my job, my performance at my job. Uh, but the second go around, after being in facilities and going to a treatment facility, I did have all the tools, but I never applied or used them, you know. And one of the things that always sticks with me is if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. So, without changing any of my behaviors, my thinking pattern, and the places, people, and situations that I put myself in, nothing ever changed. And it was condoned and it was okay. And, people even gave it their blessing because it was the norm and they have their own dysfunctionality. So I had to definitely change up my environment. But the first thing I had to do is change my pattern of thinking.
Okay.
I call it the stinking thinking. I know people probably heard of that, but when you start to lose your self identity and you no longer care what anybody thinks about you or the way that you conduct yourself, or uh, the way that you affect other people. Once you no longer care about that, that's where the darkness and the real dependency really kicks in. So you have to acknowledge those things first, and then put forth a plan. Now, it doesn't happen overnight or anything without some planning. It's not like I was going to wake up one day and just, okay, I'm done. That's kind of how it went, but it was in my mind consistently. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. I didn't like the way I was behaving. I didn't like the people that I was hanging around with. I didn't like the environment I was living in. So, with the acknowledgement, came the changes. So,
Mhm. Now, that was the first time. Now, with the second time, where you didn't go to a facility, and I remember going to the facility with you, and I remember one of the things that stood out in one of your discussion groups was that you didn't feel like you could have fun sober.
mhm.
So I believe that's part of attributing alcohol to something that isn't realistic, because how fun can it be to be intoxicated, dangerous, um, not remembering
Yeah,
what
that's
you
the one thing
did?
you don't remember,
Yeah.
the fun that you
Yeah,
use
so
whatever substance
how
to
is
try
it
to
fun?
get.
That was the thing that when I heard you, and you weren't the only one that said that, other people in your group said that, that sober people were boring and that it was fun. And I was like, but what's fun about, you know, being so drunk you wet yourself, or you don't remember what you did, or you wreck your car, or hurt someone, or hurt yourself. I never understood what fun was in that. Uh, so that feels
Well,
fun
it's the
for you.
consequences don't mean anything to you. You've lost that inner, I would say, level of where you don't care. I mean, no amount of DUIs was going to stop me from drinking. And as far as not thinking that you're fun anymore, is just because you could not have any limits on the person that you are trying to portray out there. And with that, you think it's fun. So, uh, what the weird thing is, when you are the sober person around a bunch of people that are intoxicated or high, you always think to yourself, man, I know I didn't act like that.
Yeah,
Yes,
but you
you
did.
did.
And
That was
that's the
you.
thing that was so disturbing for me, because, I'm a weenie, can't drink, can't get high, can't do any of those things and have fun. I mean, I've been drunk in my life. I'm not gonna lie. Rare, very rare. I think maybe 4 or 5 times in my life I've been where I consider myself intoxicated. And God bless me, I did not get the gene the rest of my family has. I actually get physically ill if I overindulge in alcohol or substances. I get weird when I smoke, or if I do something to make me high. It changes my whole physical and mental well being in a way I can't. I like to have control over what I'm doing. And that was the thing that was most disturbing for me when I came into the environment when you were really spiraling downward. Um, I think that was the camping trip that we
Mm.
went to. And your feet were swollen. You had been bit in the face by a dog. You looked jaundiced to me. And I actually cried because you're usually so particular about your appearance, and you were dirty, and you just didn't look like my brother. So it made me super upset to see you like that, and then to see the people around you that you were with daily, because I drove in from here in Texas, and they were making fun of you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's that environment to where it's acceptable. That's what's expected of you because that's what you portray and that's what you put out. So nobody is going to make the changes for you.
Right.
People they'll laugh along with you and they'll laugh at you. That's where it becomes that self fortitude and using your own mental stability to determine what you want. Because if you don't want it, nobody else can want it for you.
But didn't you also rely on God? Wasn't that part of it? Was a spiritual awakening too?
That was a big part of it. I always had a close interpersonal relationship with God, talked to Him, but it was more like, oh, don't let me feel like this ever again. Don't let me. It was more of the plead and begging instead of acknowledging His greatness and what He can actually do in your life. A lot of grief. Don't grieve very well. Lost dad when he passed. That was a big part of my start of my downfall. And even knowing him as being a person that struggled with alcohol until it hit him in his pockets, and he was one of those people that can quit because if you hurt his pockets, he's done.
I remember when Dad got that DUI, and he called all of his children. I think he talked to all of us, and he said he'll never touch another drop of alcohol as long as he lives.
He did.
And he was ashamed of having to do that weekend,
hotel jail.
Hotel thing. And he came out, and I don't think I ever saw Dad touch another drop of alcohol, and that was years of being sober. He just quit drinking.
Yep.
But yes, there's a family history, and I think that's important to note when we talk about generational behaviors, DNA, propensity to handling alcohol, environmentally being accepted to abuse drugs, smoke marijuana, drink to excess as coping. And then it's also generational curses where people are unable to control their desire, their use, and their abuse of substances. But remember what I said, it's a psychosocial disorder when people begin to over depend and need, like you said, you needed to drink because you had created that dependency.
Yeah, it's just like, the average person, I'd like a glass of wine to relax, that's the average person. But the addictive person is like, why am I just going to drink a glass of wine because it's not going to achieve the desired effect that you're trying to reach? A glass of wine for the average person, they'll mellow out, they're fine. Now, I think I'm mellowing fine after, about a half a pint, and then didn't get there quite, and then another half pint, and by the time I'm already gone to the wind, and then it's, all right, now the fun can begin. So, and it's
Let's
more
talk
or less
about that. I want to stop you there because I think what you described is where people that might become addicted, they don't have that line. They don't know how to stop. Like, I can take a glass of wine, feel the goodness from it, the warmth, the relaxation, the pleasantness, and that's it. I actually really don't like the taste of alcohol. I can't think of a single drink that I actually can say I like it. But I have a stopping point. It's like, once I feel that, I'm done. But you just described of pushing past that.
Every addict or a person that is dependent upon something, you do know when enough is enough. I mean, you have that. I mean, any person that tells you different, I mean, that's just them trying to make themselves feel better. But you know when enough is enough. It's just that you don't care. I you don't care. I know when I've had too much to drink, but I don't care. You know?
And something that was just said by our cousin Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. This was actually supposed to play on Monday, but for some reason it went live, so we're just going with it rather than just stopping it. And then he said, you cannot control the desire to keep on to have drink after drink after drink after drink. And that's absolutely what I heard and what I see when I deal with dependency. But then it also becomes biochemical, where you talked about after a while, you can't not drink because of the DTs and the physical effects of that. Talk to us a little bit about that. Now that we've touched on the fact that you drank to excess because of a lack of control and the ability to push past your own boundaries. And it's like you just said, I knew that, but you don't care. That's such a conflicting state to be in when you're.
There goes the addiction, because it is a conflict with internally within inside of yourself. You're not able to control or want to control that aspect of yourself. You don't mind stumbling around. You don't mind, as a person that does a lot of telecommunications and everything, and being an articulate person, you don't think your speech sounds like it is until you hear that recording of yourself the following day. And 9 times out of 10, you really don't even remember the conversation or the subject or things that you were talking about.
Right.
But the physical aspect of it is the going through the DTs. You know, everybody has that old age saying of the hair of the dog that bit you, you know, get you a little nip of it, and then, you know, it'll mellow you out. With the addict, I mean, it really becomes that saying, because you don't want to sit up and shake. Night sweats, your body ache.
It's the smell for me too. That's something that, again, you're so hyper concerned with your appearance. Always have been. Sharp dresser, like to look good. Being tall and thin, you can wear clothes, but when you started to neglect your appearance and your hygiene and didn't understand the smell of the alcohol seeping out of your pores. And it took someone like me coming around going, you reek of alcohol. And you're like, well, you know.
That's exactly it. You know, going through liver problems, pancreas problems, even with all of that laid out on the shelf, it doesn't stop you from drinking.
So what did stop you from drinking? And I know you're still struggling.
Oh,
I know we just had something very tragic and traumatic happen to us with Milo. And then I took off and left you.
No,
So
that wasn't the issue. It's just, you know, you always like to sometimes test your battlefield, to see if you still have that mental fortitude. Like I was saying, it's a challenge to try to see if you can enjoy yourself the way that you used to. If you ever go back into your addiction, it's because of you missing something of what you felt. But once you hit that other side of it, and you be like, it's not, was it worth it? What did I gain from it? Except the headache and the hangover, or I think that's why a lot of people that do call what they call relapse and go back through it is that you're seeking that first high again. You want that first happy feeling that you used to get, but it doesn't come. All it does.
Do you ever?
No, no. You actually don't feel any different than when you are at your worst in your addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So the relapse is just another reminder of the path that you will go down to, and you'll be right back in the same situation because it's your stinking thinking that's getting the best of you, not having that mental fortitude to understand, like, okay, I'm a person that says, some people are able to have that one beer, and that's fine with them. I'm not a person that can limit myself. I live life in things that I do, everything almost to excess. If I make money, I want to make a lot of it. If I spend money, I like to spend a lot of it. If I drink a lot of it. So it's that excessive behavior that's internally in me that leads back down to putting you back in the same pot that you're just trying to jump out of.
So let's say someone's listening and they may hear some of the things you said and recognize themselves. What would you tell them to do to start down the path of sobriety to get help?
Well, just going through, this is something I didn't agree with counselors. When I did go to a rehab facility,
Mm-hmm.
they said that the worst place for you to be is in your own head. I didn't agree with that because unless I got in touch with myself and communicated with myself, I was never even going to want to face the problem. Um, they say fake it till you make it, and they give you all of those sayings to be able to use. But until you come to terms with yourself, your self identity, and you'll hear me say it over and over again, having the mental fortitude uh, that you always had prior, even growing up as a kid. You didn't think that you were going to grow up and drink. You didn't think you were going to smoke cigarettes. You had a mental fortitude to where you used to say, no, that's not for me. That's having that mental fortitude. Uh, and that's what you have to get back in touch with to be able to want to face your addiction, because people are going to want the worst for you sometimes. So when people try to see you start making changes, that's where you'll get invited to more parties. Look, come hang out. You're not doing this anymore. You're not doing that anymore. Come visit this person, or let's go see this person, and you put yourself back in that environment over again. So unless you have the mental fortitude and the want for yourself to see changes in your life, then the chances of you going through recovery successfully are like slim to none.
And I think 2 points. One, in agreement with Kevin, that you have to have that connection with God so you don't lose a grip on yourself. I think that's really important. And then also what you just said about the invitations and the people that want you to do what you've been doing. And it's rare to find people that want to help you change, especially if they're in the throes of an addiction. It's not that they're against you, it's just people are for themselves. That's not normal human behavior. They're not against you, they're just for themselves. And they want you to do what they want you to do. And if you've been a drinking buddy, they don't want you to stop being a drinking buddy,
Right.
even if you want to. So would you say it's really important to get out of your environment? Did you find it easier to get sober by leaving where you were and being in a disciplined, non-toxic environment that was nice and peaceful and um, except for me fussing. I think that was the hardest thing. And I was really hard on you at first because you had to acclimate my environment. I wasn't letting you make me acclimate yours.
Right. Yeah. Environment is a big thing. Um, that's going to be one of the things that helps keep you sober. It's not going to make you sober, but it helps you maintain your sobriety. Is changing your people, places, and things that you do. That's where that's a continuation of your sobriety. But hitting the point to where you want to get sober is the spiritual aspect of your life. Being in touch with God, your God, however you spiritually connect. Uh, but that's got to be something that you touch with inside of yourself and understand whose you are and where you came from, and being able to acknowledge it and being able to turn yourself over to it, letting the will of something greater than your own self be done inside of yourself.
That's that's key. Now, and thank you, Kevin. Your cousin said you're really smart. And he's praying that you stay sober, or that you are sober. And I can vouch for him. He's been mostly sober. Not that he hasn't had some relapse and some fallbacks, but those time periods are very short. Number one, because he knows my boundaries. My boundaries do not change in this home. And I'm accountable to God for what I allow and what I don't allow. And yet and still, I'm also a realist. I don't expect perfection. I just expect being perfected, which means you got to be trying. If I see someone trying, I'm going to help you to the nth degree. But when I think you're saying, forget you, I don't care what you do, I'm going to do what I want to do, you got to kick rocks and blow bubbles.
Well, you can give lip service to the falseness of it.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is, just trying to trick yourself into believing something.
Mhm.
A, a big thing is that own self want. If a lot of people with addictions lose the self want of something positive, be it gambling, be it alcohol, be it hard drugs, or even women,
Mhm.
um, you're looking for something that you don't have inside of yourself.
Right. It's self destruction and self sabotage. And I do think it's important for me as a person in psychology and positive applied psychology to call out when it comes to addiction, being in that downward spiral, being where your whole environment is around your addiction and you don't even recognize what's normal. You don't even recognize what's healthy. You become self destructive in your addiction. And that is a common thing that I see is that when someone is in that I don't care phase that he talked about, they really don't care. They don't care about their health, their mental well being, their relationships, their money, their body, their physical body. They're totally in a self sabotaging behavior. And those are the people we're trying to reach today. I didn't bring my brother on to this show to talk nice and pretty. I wanted him to give it to you straight from the midst of his struggle. He's not perfect. He's not perfectly sober, but he is trying.
I'm just on the right side of the battle now.
Yeah,
So
where it's getting better.
yeah, it's just I'm on the other side of the battle instead of being behind the battle.
Mhm.
Um, any person that struggles with life, period, is always reaching out for something to try to change.
Yeah.
You know, and it could be, like I said, substances or you know,
Relationships,
right,
money, excess of anything, like you said.
right. There's healthy addictions. You know, an
I try to
addiction.
be obsessive about God.
Yeah, and you know, some people, just like with God, some people take it overboard.
Yeah.
You know, some people
They become, I call that spooky spiritual.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, addiction is a part of everybody's life. It just um, it's where it has a negative impact upon your own persona and who you are.
It's harmful.
It's harmful.
When it becomes self-sabotaging, doesn't serve you well,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't help you or help others, and you're socially misfit. And you have to put yourself in environments that aren't good for you so you can practice your addiction. Like gambling, you're going to always be around people trying to take your money, be it offering you your addiction. When it comes to sex addicts, any addiction requires self sabotage, and it requires you seeking things to an excess. And that's why I believe what the Bible says, all things in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
So, to wrap this up, again, I didn't bring my brother on to do anything more than we want to help other people. And when I talked to him about the statistics I'm seeing and the amount of people that are now seeking help or trying to get help for their loved ones, for addictions and mental illness and suffering that the whole family's going through, I can tell you it is so overwhelming for me to see it. And so I wanted to have this conversation with somebody, you know, regardless of him being my brother, he's someone I have watched struggle with addiction, get sober, and now he's fighting to stay sober. So I felt like what he had to share was very relevant to anyone out there that is struggling to become sober or realizes you're at rock bottom. You can't control your drinking. You have what he called a stinking thinking. You don't care. You're harmful. And maybe you got a hold of this and you're listening, and probably maybe God even led you to the rebroadcast and you're listening to us after we've gone from being live. I want you to know there's help available. I have some resources and I'll put them in the chat, and I'll make sure that I give you these numbers and places that you can call to get help. There's a national helpline that's free. It's confidential. It's 24/7, 365 a day, year a day, referral and information source at addictions. And this doesn't matter what your addiction is. It can be alcohol, like my brother James. It could be drugs. It could be sex. It could be shopping. They have resources to put you in a place where you can get help. And that number is 1-800-662-HELP. Again, that's 1-800-662-HELP or 4357. This is a 24/7, 365 a day resource line you can call to get help for your addiction. You don't have to struggle alone. You may not have a bossy older sister to drag you to where you're wanting to be, but can provide the environment for you to do it alone. You may need treatment centers. You may need to go through detox at a hospital until you're able to be strong enough to go to treatment. I just want you to know you're not alone. There is help. There's a way to become sober, and you have to want it for yourself.
Find somebody that you can confide in, that you respect, and that you trust to be able to talk to. That is one big thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people with addictions always like things to be given to them sugar coated.
Hmm.
You know, you'll have that person in family that's like, leave Uncle Johnny alone. We already know how he is or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that condoning behavior. So when you're ready to try to make a change for yourself, find someone that you can truly trust and that you might need someone that you admire, someone that you have respect for, that you're going to be able to take a hard truth about yourself
Mm-hmm.
and being able to implement it into your own thinking.
That's a really good point, because this really does start with where you are in your thinking. I know a lot of us have taken the pandemic hard. A lot of us are grieving. We're collectively grieving across the globe, and few of us deal with grief well. There's been a lot of loss of life, loss of lifestyle, loss of livelihood, loss of homes. People have lost their careers. There's a lot of collective grieving going on right now. And I know for me, um, it's been helpful, since experiencing my loss, um, that, I don't expect people to understand or even care about. But my dog was like my baby. So for me to lose him the way I lost him and experiencing him having his heart attack, that was very traumatizing. And so I had to go through making sure I didn't depend on things like anything to help me not feel it. And that's one of the things that I feel things. I'm an introvert, so I deal with things better by myself. I'm pulling away and isolating. I go inward to recover. And that can also be dangerous too, isolating. You can fall into addiction there. But I tend to not drink when I'm sad. I may have a drink or two, like I like my mimosas. So I will do that. But even that, I can't do too much of it or I'll get sick. It's not fun. That's not fun. So I would like to encourage everyone to understand you're not bad for having a dependency. You say that, James, that shame feeling.
No, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't determine who you are. It's just something that you're going through. And everybody has their own things that they're going to go through in life. It's just part of life. And it's depending upon what you want in your life and your quality of life is going to control your decisions that you make in your life.
Mhm. So, again, if you find yourself, this is resonating with you, you understand you may be having a problem with some area of your life where your addiction or your dependency on substances, alcohol, drugs, people, shopping, sex, there's all kinds of addictions. And we all tend to have those addictions of some sort. We have our preferences, we have our addictions, things that we can't stop doing, even if it's harmful to us or others. You can call 1-800-662-HELP. It's a 24/7, what is it? 24/7, 365 helpline to help refer you to what you might need to recover and to get to a place where your addiction isn't controlling you and it's not affecting your quality of life. So we hope something we shared today will be helpful for you. Um, Hearing someone fighting for sobriety should be pretty impactful. I hope that I know a family member being the person that I've interviewed. I'm not embarrassed. He hasn't embarrassed me. That's my brother. I love him, good, bad, or indifferent. I didn't like what he was doing. And instead of teasing him or just complaining about it, I had to do what I could to help him. And he could have not taken the help, but he did. I'm proud of him. I love him. I'll keep on being a pain in his hiney about it until I see a long-term ability to stay sober and not depend on substances. So anything else you want to say before we sign off?
One thing I always tell people is if I can look at it and face it and be able to do it, and for people that definitely know me, it is achievable. It is something that can be done. You always get that from any person that has faced it and everything. It's just when you know that you're ready, you'll be ready, and just think for yourself.
Okay. And pray.
And pray.
Take God's hand, hold on to it, and He's capable where you're not.
Yes.
So, and He wants the best for you. He loves you best. He wants the best for all of us, His creation. And again, there's no shame in admitting this pandemic has just pushed you off a ledge, and you may have to have a conversation with yourself about your drinking, or a conversation about what you're doing with substances, pain pills. People are abusing all kinds of things right now. If you need help, help is available. It won't be easy, will it?
No, it's not easy. It's just, I mean, you can look at any addiction as something, if you want to confront it, is something that's overly self-fulfilling your life. So it can, like you said, it could be anything, and there's no harm in talking about it. That's why I said find someone that you trust, someone that may have a little bit more knowledge than you. Going to talk to God, He will give you the answers, or He'll put you on the path to be able to find the answers that you may need. But it's all about starting with yourself too.
Yeah, that's your responsibility. Yeah, you may have the right to drink as much as you want, but you have a responsibility to yourself and those that love you to not abuse or misuse your body and substances, and to be there for yourself. And we all need you. And I told my brother that I need you to do work and to live life and not die early. If you can avoid it, why not? Next to those cigarettes. Okay. I think I might have gone too far now. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'm Cheryl Carr, your work doctor, and this is the Achieve with Dr. C show. Make sure you tune in live on Monday. I'll have further information. We'll talk more about addiction. And also make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, and be sure and catch the rebroadcast. And if you are watching the rebroadcast, like and share. Make sure other people can get this information too. We love you. Bye. See you next time.